Good afternoon. That is Tuesday, October 29th, 2024 at 5:18 p.m. And we have a quorum of members present, so I will call the Finance Committee budget session number 4 to order. And we got a couple items on the agenda tonight. The first item, though, is number 1, budget discussions and actions regarding recommending a 2025 budget, including setting the 2025 fee schedule. And this is a continuation of our discussion going on for about the last couple weeks on the city's budget. And we had at our last meeting, we had a pretty robust conversation on items such as our leaf collection, and also and started talking about the special event public safety charges, that possibility. But I think what we're going to do is maybe go through just to kind of go through last time we went through the top half of the budget spreadsheet here, or the budget reduction spreadsheet, and itemized the 2025 changes included in the proposed budget, but we did not talk about other proposals that we had not committed to yet. So maybe the best thing to do is just to kind of go through these other proposals and just to kind of just have another quick discussion on them, if there's any consensus on if we want to do any of these other proposals or not. I think what we'll do is maybe looking at the order of the list, we'll just kind of work from the bottom of the list upwards. It will probably be the best way to kind of move through here. And the first item we'll take on is from the facilities department. Yes, Alder Tierney.
I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
Where are we at? What do we have to?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, well, here's where we're at right now. When we left last week, we were at a total levy increase of 2.697%. And the mayor has a goal for us to hit a levy increase of 2.5%. So where we started out at the beginning of our budget discussion is that we were at an increase of 4.83%, or an increase of $1.7 million on the levy. We were able to whittle that down to 3.31%, and eventually, at the end of last week, 2.697%, which is an approximate levy amount of $984,712. If we can hit the goal of 2.5% of levy increase, or a levy or $912,737, that's the target that the mayor has given us. Well, in order to do that, we need to find approximately $62,000 in reductions or revenue increases in our budget. So, all right. So that's where we're at. So let's start off with on the facilities department. Eliminate the window cleaning, City Hall, for City Hall, police, and fire stations. And that would be a reduction of $10,595. And I believe what the process there is, instead of cleaning all of these windows every year, we would clean them every other year, kind of alternating between City Hall and the fire department. So any comments on that? I know, Gary, you mentioned that was not high on your list. That
it's pretty low on my list.
Yeah.
I think we have to present the best to the citizens of the city of Wausau as we can, and the City Hall is one of the prime places, and I think we can demonstrate that certainly with clean windows. As people come in and vote and pay their taxes, they're greeted with a clean City Hall. I think that's just me, of course.
Okay. Yep. Exactly. So, and Alder McElhaney, just to bring you up on speed, what we're going to do is we're going through the list of potential budget reductions, and so you didn't miss anything. Okay. So anybody else on that, on window cleaning?
I would just second what Alder Grissman said.
Okay. I'm kind of in the same boat too. That's, I get a little worried, concerned about, facilities maintenance if there's things that, a good appearance is priceless, really. So it's, if we can find savings in other areas, I would tend to keep this line item. The next one up is from the Assessments Department. Stop funding state mandated assessor training. Employees would fund their own training costs. That's $8,100. This is kind of a no-go for me when I see the words state mandated. All of a sudden, it's why are we making our employees pay for stuff that is part of their job description? So,
Second that.
I have to agree with that.
okay, absolutely. So, moving on. Public Works, we talked about this last week, eliminate leaf pickup. That's a total cost of $204,378. Alder Kearney?
My question is that eliminating both pickups, or is that eliminating
I
one
think this
pickup?
one was in the packet.
Okay.
But I don't know that that's different.
Yeah, the full 204 would be eliminating all leaf pickup.
How much would it be if we eliminated one pickup, Eric?
About
56,000?
56,000, yeah.
I'm in favor of eliminating one pickup and saving $56,000.
Okay.
Just because the first pickup that they do in the year, there's not a lot. The second pickup, the ones you're working on now,
Yep.
is a big pickup.
Yep,
That
that's for
would-
sure.
That would be my suggestion.
So that would be with motor pool. What we would be doing is not running the vacuum truck early, if I remember correctly. So most of the savings would be from to the motor pool chargebacks, so. Okay,
So does that help the budget?
Yeah, what they said before you came in was we had to find $62,000 in increased revenue or decreased.
But is that part of it?
Would
If
that
it's
affect-
motor pool?
It would, because we wouldn't be using the equipment, and so it would reduce the expenses in the recycling fund,
Right.
and it would also reduce revenue in motor pool. If they're using trucks for other things,
Which we
like
would
if they
be.
then are doing
Yeah.
stormwater, or you may not actually see a savings, I'm not sure, because it was basically motor pool charges. Though in the motor pool fund, if you didn't have the trucks out, running all over the city, you could save fuel or
Right.
wear and tear too.
Right.
But the guys are not working overtime for this, or this is generally straight time?
That's correct, yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
okay. So we'll put a pin on that. From Parks, eliminate flower baskets downtown. We talked briefly about that, and that's Alder Kearney.
Okay, I know that it's not high on some people's lists, but at this point, we have to look at what is necessity and what is a nicety. We've got $62,000 we have to come up with. We have the umbrellas downtown, which are beautiful, and I get it, the flower baskets are beautiful, but we're not reducing any services with this. And right now, all this is a cost to our citizens, and I think with $60-some thousand, this is a $15,000 cost that I think we need to look at
Okay,
doing away with. That's my opinion. I see Alder McElhaney nodding her head.
I understand. I know that I've had a couple of neighborhood meetings. I think that I could get that through. I mean, they like them. They like that. It makes the downtown look nice, or the whole river district, I guess it is. I'd like to put a pin in it and see if there's anything else that could be of good cheer.
okay. We can circle back to that one. So,
Making it positive.
no, that's good, that's good. So we'll we'll circle back on the flowers, flower baskets. Next item from Parks is eliminate Sylvan Hill operations. That would be a savings of $102,546. And I think we had some pretty, we did talk about this in one of our earlier budget sessions, and I don't.
Isn't that a mayor veto?
Yes.
Yes, that would be, that would definitely be one of the mayor has made, in no uncertain terms, that eliminating the winter operation at Sylvan Hill or closing a pool would result in a veto of the budget, so.
Well,
Go ahead, Gary.
beside the fact that the mayor would consider vetoing it, I think it's a good, I stand in favor of Sylvan Hill. I think that that is one of the enjoyments of the city of Wausau during the wintertime. Not everybody can afford Granite Heights or other ski resorts, and this gives people an opportunity for some winter fun. And I think that it's very important for the citizens that we provide this feature for them. And I, not only the neighborhood, but I think everybody in the city, especially if they're a winter sports enthusiast, appreciates the opportunity of being up at Sylvan Hill. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that, one of the concerns I had is that this last year we lost money on that, but in most years, when it's a good snow year, we do break even on the Sylvan Hill operations. Next up would be from Parks, closing one of the pools, and that would be a savings of $60,409. So the city has 3 pools.
That was a mayor veto as well.
Yes, it was. So, Alder Gisselman?
But I stand in favor of the pools. In fact, I think some on some list somewhere, I would think that we should be thinking about another pool on the southwest side. I think that ever since the Riverside pool closed, that neighborhood has been without a pool, and I think for youngsters on the southwest side, they have to travel distances, Grand Avenue for Memorial Pool or way far north for the Schulenburg Pool, and I think, so that's on a list, but I think that our pools are a valuable source for our population. Thank you.
Okay. Definitely, I know definitely the pools are a popular amenity. That's for sure.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I did talk to Jamie about this a little bit, and she said it is hard to staff the 3 pools because they're looking at approximately 60 lifeguards. And when I talked to her about the 3 pools, one of the things she said is they did have one of the pools that was down for some construction. I think it was Kaiser. Yep. And they still were able to have those other 2 pools open for people to enjoy. If we went down to 2 pools and one was out of the works for construction, that would only leave 1 pool open, and they might not be able to accommodate, especially if it's pretty hot out, everybody with the 1 pool. So that being said, I agree with keeping the pool open as well.
Absolutely. No, I agree with this. I have a hard time shutting down infrastructure because that if once it's turned off, it gets harder and harder to restart that process and more expensive. So if you let it go for more than a year. So I absolutely agree. Next up is on the fire department, bill for fire services, and this would be an increase, or a revenue increase of $93,000. And just to remind everybody, this was the fire department would bill insurance companies, if I remember correctly, for services rendered as sort of cost recovery. I don't know if we're ready for that, or if something like that still has or if there's logistical questions we would have on that. I don't know. We've got the fire chief here if anybody has any questions on this. So, I don't know. Jeremy, can you kind of reacquaint us with this again, with this idea?
Yeah, so this is one that the city has always provided services to our taxpayers, to our citizens, free of charge, anything other than an ambulance. Our ambulance billing goes out for transports and that sort of thing, but we've never in the past charged for anything other than hazardous materials calls. Hazardous materials calls are always, we can always recoup the costs through the state on anything that's hazmat related, but when it comes to fire services, a lot of insurance companies in their plans with personal fire protection, that sort of thing, in their insurance premiums do have a line item for that to cover those sort of bills. But that, it's a contentious area in the fact that we've never done it before, and these are services that are provided through taxpayers' money. But on the same token, a lot of times there is money available through the insurance companies to cover some of those costs to recoup it. And some fire departments throughout the state do it and some don't. So it's just kind of one of those things that we'd have to make a decision on if that's something we want to do to our citizens or not, as far as certain services that are rendered. A lot of times if there's this fire, we board up the windows or we board up the doors, secure the building. We could charge for, overhaul activities and different services like that we do right now free of charge.
Okay. Alder Tierney?
This is something I'm not in favor of. You've got people who've lost their home or a good portion of smoke, fire damage, their possessions. To hit them with another fee when it's probably a pretty devastating time in their life, and if they don't have this protection, you're adding an additional cost onto them. So in my mind, this is where we look for perhaps something different. And that's my thoughts.
Alder McElhaney?
What, is that the only thing, like, after post-fire? What about, do you charge at all for people coming, for people that are falling, or people that you don't transport?
We do not, depending on the nature of the call and what kind of services we render. A lot of times if it's, no patient contact, we don't charge. If someone else called and they didn't call 911, we don't charge. If they called 911 and they did need some help, or maybe we administered some oxygen or something in that realm, there's a small charge. But for most cases, it's pretty clear cut. And as the fire chief, I'm not a fan of charging for these services just because, it is something that brings people to Wausau. It is an added value to the services that we provide. But it is an idea and it is an option, which is why I brought it forward to something that we could do that other communities do. But a lot of times, most of our charges that go out are just for ambulances. And even in that realm, I think the last number we ran a year or two ago was anytime we bill, we bring back, say we bill $3 million, we're lucky if we bring $1 million back in revenue in payments for our billing for ambulance services. So about a third.
Alder Henke?
I think it's an idea and maybe something we keep on the list for next year if we're going to have to keep doing this, but
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we need more information on this than to enact something like this now. So I would tend to put this one aside at this point in time. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Chief. Next up is from the engineering department. This is create a $25 wheel tax. This could generate up to $600,000 for revenue, and they would use this for road projects that could help offset some of the budget for that's in DPW, such as hot mix and other supplies. So we've got Eric here. I don't know if you want to give us just a quick overview.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the discussion. When staff is looking at the city and how it funds its operations, right? Everything is dependent on the levy, right? So all of our operations are funded by the levy. And so when we look at something like a wheel tax or a stormwater utility or garbage fees or other special fees, then that really is diversifying revenue for the city council, right? And it really gives the city opportunities in decision-making processes. It's more flexible every budget season. I know the wheel tax or the vehicle registration fee is not popular to even talk about it. I get that. I get a lot of calls on it too. But you know, when you look at bringing in $600,000 that needs to be spent on roads, right? We're taking money off the levy to fund our operations, whether it's hot mix, crack sealing, all of those road repair items. We're in our infrastructure budget as well is borrowing, right, for our capital. So this can either be used to supplement any of those items, right, to reduce our borrowing or to reduce the amount that we pull off the levy, or it could be used to add to it. But those are decisions that the council would have on an annual basis, right? And so it's the same as we look at with other diversification of revenue. And so I think it's important that the city council consider it. And maybe this is just the start of the discussion on it, but I think it's important. We have a lot of other communities that do this. Right now, the county charges it and the city doesn't see a dime of that, right? None of that money comes back into the city. And so unless legislation changes, that's, you know, they're getting about 25 to 27% of their wheel tax from the city of Wausau residents. So.
Not only do we not receive it, but they're not streets in the city either.
Yeah,
So
they
they're all-
don't spend any of that money within the city, correct?
Yeah, so that's, those, all of that money goes to infrastructure outside the city limits.
Yes.
Correct, yes.
There are 42 cities right now in the state that are charging a wheel tax.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Okay. Alder Tierney?
I think it's an item that warrants discussion for future. I know that the mayor has also said that this would be a veto for him, but I think that it is something that we consider looking at on future budgets.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. This is something, we are going to have discussion on this and other revenue models, definitely for the future. If we continue to hit levy limits and expenditure restraints, this might be a way in which we can sort of smooth out some of those budgetary hurdles. And I don't think we're in a point right now that we can enact a wheel tax for this budget, but I think this is definitely going to come back for discussion at some point next, probably late winter, early spring, where we can start having some education sessions on what actually a wheel tax would, what the pros and cons, the cost benefits of something like this would be to the city. So, anything else on that? Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Yes. Next up, we've got implement a public safety fee to cover 400 block concerts via a permit fee adjustment. And this would expect a revenue enhancement of $12,000. And Alderman McElhaney, you want to jump in first?
I just want to ask, where is that other ticketed item on here?
That would be, that's at the, actually, that'll be coming up.
Where
They're
is that?
kind of split, so we're kind of going from the list from the bottom up.
Ticketed events.
Oh, it's on the top. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. I didn't,
Yeah, so the
Different.
two items were kind of split,
Different items, yeah.
a service charge for ticketed events, but then also an additional surcharge to free permitted events. So we have the police chief here who wants to, if anybody has any questions on this. This would definitely impact our free concerts downtown, because those are all free events. I don't know, what else, Alder Tierney?
Well, one of the things that Wausau Events did discuss at the last meeting, or did bring it up, is that if there's going to be a safety charge for the concerts, the 400, why are we not looking at the other events that are held on the 400 block? I know that there is other events, there's marathons, so why are we just looking at the concerts and not all events that are using the 400 block?
Oh, I think we would. I think that some of the work that's going to have to be done is really separating different levels of special events. So when we have a special event that's in the evening hours, involves entertainment, and includes everybody drinking their six-pack of beer while they're down there, that is a different level of event than another event they host with come one, come all kids, get your pumpkins.
Right.
So depending on the event, I think if you have two similar events that require police services, that's basically what we're suggesting here, is when we have to put police services down there because of the event, that there'd be a charge for that.
Okay, but are we looking at not allowing alcoholic beverages on the square in the future? That somebody had asked me about, and I don't have an answer. Is that something that you're looking at this point?
That is not my
Okay.
recommendation.
Okay. Have you had to involve police in a lot of affairs at these concerts, or has it been relatively?
No, I would say that for the most part, the events on Wednesday nights, the concerts on the square, are pretty anticlimactic for law enforcement. I mean, our officers are engaged with the community. They put some fires out before they're raging, I guess I would say. But again, I would just say to the council, our job's ours is to prepare for the worst and meet our professional obligations when it comes to special events and large groups, especially in outdoor spaces. So that's what that recommendation is.
I understand, and I think that we need to look at not just the concerts, but other activities where you have to put officers at the 400 block. Like you said, it's different than, okay, everybody come and pick out your pumpkin. But again, I think we can't just point the finger at WAS events. We have to.
Yeah, I mean, it just so happens that Wausau Events puts on the most events in Wausau, but there are numerous other organizations that put on events that do require police services, some of which are ticketed, some of which are not. And I think it would only be appropriate to have equity amongst those organizations and what the cost with that would be.
Right.
If you'll bear me just a second, like all the rest of the things are ours, and if you would like, I think there's a potential where we could hit your number by addressing numerous items and mitigating the impact on the community or our department for each of those by lowering. So, for example, I have Eliminate Animal Control Program. That's the 3 20-hour-a-week community service officer 2 positions. We could cut that in half or take $45,000 of that and put it back to the city, and then take the remaining and give that to our CSO program, and we'd be able to hire additional CSOs. That would be a 1-year gap for the council to be able to look at that and say, were we satisfied with our animal control program? I feel very confident that you would be, because again, for the last year, that's how we functioned with even less. So if we got some additional dollars to our CSO program, like 20,000, that gives us significant opportunity. And then if those dollars, if the target is 60-some thousand, then take some of the remainder of that, maybe 25, 30,000, and give us that as a target to come up with utilizing for our special events, so that we can tier into those event organizers. I mean, I'll stand here and tell you, at some point, we need to figure out how to fund public safety for special events. But if instead of having that impact be so severe financially in year one, we can year over year build in a program that allows that to fund, probably and hopefully without reducing the amount of offerings, that might be more palatable. And I would just say that our goal and the direction I gave our staff when we came up with those is come up with recommendations that you believe, based on our experience, doesn't lower the quality of life for our citizens. Nobody gets to say we used to have a great police department before the 2025 budget. And those are some of the recommendations that I think
we can definitely live with, and I feel pretty confident that might mitigate some of the impact on the community, if you want to look at them as a whole.
I do have a question about that. Now, you're talking about eliminating the animal control program. That would be everything, right? No CSOs, just handled by the department, like it always has been?
Well, that might be a misnomer, the way it's stated there. We're still going to do animal control.
Right.
We still are sending staff to humane officer training. We just had some get back. Our CSOs have always responded to those type calls. I would expand the current CSO program we have, which would be different than what was proposed during the last time we discussed this with 5 or 6 meetings. My ideal state is what we proposed, but we got to come up with some budget cuts here, and some of those things take tough decisions. And my point is, we will still have a very robust response to all animal calls with officers and CSOs. And if we got an additional $20,000 in our CSO budget from the animal control budget to offset that, we would have an additional 30% more staff working animal control than we did in the last year.
Okay, this is where I'm confused. On here, you have reduced CSO hours for at a savings of approximately 27,000. So how do you reduce but then add to that budget?
Well,
I think we would have to strike that line item, wouldn't we?
yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, we had some draconian cuts, and that was one, because we love our CSO program and don't want to see it reduced. But if I had to hit a target that I was given, and so that's on there. I would stand here and definitely argue against doing that. And if this concept I'm talking about of reducing the animal control budget by 50,000, I want the remaining money put in the CSO budget, and that not to be a cut, because one would offset the other.
Well, I guess if we took away reducing the CSO program and left the animal control program off the list and not increase the CSO program.
Then you hit your target. And we will do the exact same thing in 2025 that we did in 2024.
Right, so I guess that's kind of what I was looking at, is giving you back your CSOs, but not increasing the budget is an option.
I think that's
Not the option you would want to hear, but that's an option.
well, I mean, I would say this, that you're right. I would love for you not to cut anything from the police budget. I'd love for you to give us some more. But is that a cut we can live with? Yes, it is. Do I think the community suffers, that animals suffer, that there's any less service that anyone is going to notice? No, I do not. So if that was your decision, you guys are still in my good graces when I drive home today.
Can we put a pin in that as a possibility?
We can do that. Also, what we can do is Mary Beth just pointed out.
Mary Ann.
Sorry. Mary Ann just pointed out, in the animal control fund, page 130 in the budget, we do have $138,000 sitting in the animal control fund balance. That's I believe that's accumulated license revenue, isn't it?
Yeah, over the years.
Over the years.
And levy.
And money from previous year's levy.
Right.
We could use some of that if we wanted to continue the animal control program as a pilot. And still either decide to increase CSO hours, or, or eliminate animal control, or something. So we do have an option if we want to keep animal control, and also want to reduce our levy for this year. We could dip into the fund balance in the animal control fund. Does that make sense, Alder Gisselman?
Yes, thank you. Well, the city council just went through some, what I would call grueling, maybe not that severe, discussions with regard to exactly how we're going to be dealing with animal control. I mean, that wasn't an easy decision for some of us to come to, because that involved a variety of at least 2 other scenarios. So I think at this point in time, I would leave it to the city council. I think it's too late in the year. I think that the animal control program that the city council delivered to the citizens is pretty much what we have now. And I would, at this point in time, not to tinker with it, if, I'm not sure about the exact funding and all, but I think it laid out funding, it laid out personnel, it laid out training, it laid out how we're going to do animal control. And I think we've promised that program to the citizens, and I would question if we would want, at this point in time, since it's so recent, to back off of that. But of course, that's up to the city council on that one. But I have questions about backing off on that proposal that was presented and passed by the city council.
I do have concerns, absolutely, that, we spent 6 months debating animal control, and I'd like to see our pilot program at least operate in some semblance to see if it's worthwhile or not. Alder Tierney?
Well, I guess my question is the entire cost of this. We've got it at 75,554, and that's the cost of the animal control program now that we don't have an animal control person?
No, that is the cost of hiring 3 20-hour-a-week CSO2s over the course of a fiscal year.
Okay, but would they be here over the course of a fiscal year? Because I was told, and I discussed this with Officer Seiler, that you don't really have those 3 CSOs over the winter because almost everybody goes back to school. And the reason I talked to him about this is because I explained the situation to him, and I don't know if he shared that with you or not, where a citizen had a dog in their yard for about a week and had put notice out on one of the neighborhood blogs to somebody, please come pick up your dog. It's beautiful, but it's causing stress to his dogs. He called the non-emergent number for the Wausau Police Department about this and got no response, so he had to have his son come and take the dog to the Humane Society. So I asked Officer Seiler about this a little bit, and he told me that you really don't have a lot of CSOs this time of year.
Right, and so I think that, I'll do my best, I think we're talking apples and oranges. So the proposal that, I would agree with you, it was grueling, at least for me. That program involves, let's call them CSO2s, not CSOs, right? These are individuals that are going to have a higher training level, and they are going to work throughout the year. That was the goal with that. Captain Seiler is correct that our current CSO program is primarily a summer thing because the vast majority of those employees are college students. That doesn't mean that's all we can do with that. That's just what we've historically done with it. So if a decision was made to put additional funds in our CSO budget but not have the CSO2s in animal control, we would seek to have additional staff here, especially in the spring when we deal with licensing and licensing enforcement. Because that's a very labor-intensive time for the police department. So, he's not wrong in how he explained it to you, but the animal control program as proposed would resolve that issue. But if we got additional dollars in that, we would seek to find people to work as CSOs throughout the year and spread that out. It just wouldn't be 60 hours a week, year-round.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Alder Henke?
Thank you. Since we're talking about all of them, I really struggle with the fees for the 400 block events. Maybe that's something that we look at as like a checkbox on the permit you fill out to reserve the 400 block, and there's a fee there. But I think that's something we can do in the next years. I'd really like to see what the animal control program looks like for at least a year before we go changing it up too much. And I'm all for recommending or having public health recommending getting, like, let's say, $50,000 from ticket sales and having public health and safety come up with some sort of ordinance and recommend that to them and see where that takes us as like an initial step in recuperating some of the costs for these events. Thanks.
Okay, any other discussion? I know since we're looking at these at a block, one thing we haven't talked about was eliminate recruiting expenses of $4,000. I don't know, Chief, do you find, are you finding value in using those funds as part of your recruiting?
Yeah, we definitely did. Over this last year, we attend recruitment fairs. We push out additional social media where we can pay them some money and it goes to more targeted individuals. We were comfortable cutting that because we're anticipating a low recruitment year, which is a net positive for us to not have to fill as many open slots as historically we have. That would likely be something that in future budgets we'd bring back and say, oh, we're anticipating to need to find significant amount of additional officers, so we need to travel to do that.
That's one of those things that maybe we can, just sort of ramp up and spin down depending on if it looks like if your attrition rates grow too high or if you need to attract new officers then. So.
But we went through every line in our budget and said, what can we live with and what can we live without? And that was a we can live without. And I realized when we were trying to find $350,000, that's a $4,000 item. But $4,000 is 4,000 taxpayer dollars is the way we looked at it.
Okay. And maybe that's something that's easy to add in the future too, if it's, if recruitment is hurting, that's something that we can always put
So
back
do we know how much?
into place.
So do we, I'm sorry, do we know how much we spent, for instance, this year on recruitment?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we spent 4,000.
Pardon? I'm sorry.
We spent the 4,000.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's that?
all right. Anything else? I know we're at the top of the list. Any other discussion? We've had some robust discussion and some public comment on the special event public safety charge for ticketed events. It's listed as $157,500, but I think we've come to a general consensus that we would probably look at the most half of that for the first year if we were to enact that program. And I think we would also, if we were to enact something like this, we would have to get the Public Health and Safety Committee engaged on finding, working out the mechanics of something like that. So, yes. Okay.
So that
Yep.
policy would thus be coming, I'm not sure how long public health would take to generate that. So there would be an exact policy and how we're going to be doing that. And that would be coming from public health and safety then? Is that how you envision it, Mr. Hinkie?
I guess just talking with people, that's how I've seen it go. We give them a ballpark number to reach. They draft something up and bring it to public health and safety, and then public health and safety.
But I think don't we have to be deliberate in exactly what kind of ticketed event? I mean, we can't be, I don't know how many ticket events amounts to the amount of money we're going, or what kind, are we going to be arbitrary in our ticketed events? Some yes, some no. One big one like the fair and not the rest of them? I don't know that.
Yeah, I would say any ticketed event that the police officers need to go to, and whatever that, if that comes to 45 cents a ticket or something like that, so be it. But I think that's where the ordinance and public health and safety and the police department would have to help us out there on what they think the best practice is.
My recommendation would be, and a potential timeline for that would be during the month of December, if directed to, we would put together a work group of city staff to come up with a proposal or proposals on how that might work to be delivered to public health and safety for their debate, likely in January, so that early in the year, those individuals, those groups that are putting together ticketed events, get as much notice as possible. And then we would design that to hit the target that the finance committee and the council gave us in the budget.
Discussion on that? Yep.
I think that's what we need to do. I think that, you know, the police chief, the fire chief can meet with public health and safety, talk about, they have the data, right? And that's what it's going to have to go on. What's the data? What's, you know, what are the uses? What are the overtime? You know, that type of thing. And I think that's how you make a policy. And then we will, you know, stair-step this into, well, we have this much that we need to, you know, charge out this year. It may be less than $1 a ticket then. So this is a win-win, I believe. I know that I've had numerous neighborhood meetings, and this was overwhelmingly, and from people, a lot of people go to these, they thought this was very fine to do. They think it's not overbearing on people. It apparently is done in other communities. You know, we had our police chief check other communities, and there is that. Marathon County is considering a charge right now. We had that in a neighborhood meeting last night, that the sheriff's department is considering a surcharge for their county events. So I don't think this is too onerous, and I think it is actually a positive. I think that I think it really showed in the public eye how much time our staff, be it police and fire, DPW, puts in these events. They're invisible half the time, but they're there. And I think that this was a positive discussion within the community.
Okay. Absolutely. And I know of the few people I've talked to also, you know, it's probably one of the more palatable of the kind of surcharges that we would revenue enhancements we would bring forward. I think, given the choice of enacting a public safety charge or eliminating the animal control program, we would probably have, you know, optically it would be better to go with that public safety charge than to remove animal control or to that funding at this point in time. So I would agree with that. We could, if we set a dollar amount of, you know, say $70,000 or $75,000, that would bring us under 2.5% net levy increase, and we would be able to keep some of these other proposed cuts, like the leaf pickup or the window cleaning or even the flower baskets downtown. So we could still have some of those types of beautification items. We wouldn't have to implement a public safety charge at this point in time. You know, for free events, we would still cover those costs. So, and move forward with, you know, we and then, you know, move forward to see how this works, what kind of revenue it generates, and maybe that's enough to keep, you know, help fund some of those other free events. Marion?
Oh, I would just say that I would, you know, try to be very conservative in the estimate because, you know, we're working off of estimates on attendees, which could be people who have one ticket but come to that event multiple times throughout, you know, like if you're talking about the fair. And weather can really have an impact on events. so that I would be concerned about that. And then the other thing would be marathons. Those are ticketed events, so and they, require police services, so that might be something that we need to consider when we're looking at the events policy. And then finally, we do keep over $100,000 of room tax in the general fund, which is used to offset these types of expenses. So it's not as if the levy is funding them, the room tax is funding them, but, so,
So we do retain a certain amount of room tax funds,
we do,
but that's sort of an invisible
yes.
kind of
Yes.
a pass-through
So
into our
if
budget.
residents feel upset that their levy is funding our efforts today, it's really probably not a big impact because of that $140,000.
Okay, so I need you to go through these numbers then, because what we have on here is $157,000 in savings for community events ticketed. So you're telling me that, is that what you've estimated the overtime for police?
No, that is based on our understanding of attendance at events.
Okay.
So it's simply an estimate
Right.
at, I'd have to look at the worksheet. I think it was $1 a ticket.
Okay,
When you take into account all the 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons, Wisconsin Valley Fair, Monk Sports Festival, and the air show.
okay. So Mary Ann, you're saying that room tax pays for it, but how do we know? Do you have that calculated, that what is paid for, how much overtime?
No, because we don't track that today.
We estimate that DPW probably
Right.
spends about 30-some
Yep.
thousand.
In '23, they at least allocated, because we did set up DPW with a special events account and work tags in our accounting system, so we can tell each event and what the amount of time the DPW staff spent on that, and it takes their hourly rate plus fringe benefits. And that came to just over $30,000 in 2023.
And we do not track in our software, we don't assign an hour of work to room tax dollars, but we do track every hour. Over the last 2 years, the old-fashioned way on Excel spreadsheets for each event, how many hours. And I can tell you that estimate in 2024, give or take a couple thousand, was right in the realm of $100,000 we spent in 2024 for special events, not including campaigns. That's a whole different animal.
Yeah. And that's just police.
So my question is, if that's an estimate, there are a couple items on here that, if we needed to, I don't think would be a big issue, like the recruiting expense that you said, you're looking at possibly not needing that much this year. And that Dragon Natural Speaking software, that's
Oh, that's.
really
We
not,
we already took that.
We already cut that one.
okay. And we cut the membership.
Yep,
Okay.
everything up on the top half of the spreadsheet is already in the budget.
We've cut those on the top
Okay.
half.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to pass on the special event ticketing charge, right now, we've got a pin in eliminate leaf pickup for 56,000, the first phase of leaf pickup. Flower baskets downtown for 15,290. And I think recruiting expenses for $4,000.
That gets us where we need to be.
If we took all three of them, or a combination, or, I don't know if we can,
I guess I just want I will vote against this budget if that ticketed item is not included, period. We're talking about taking services away from every resident that pays taxes or rents. compared to people that go to events. That's a difference to me. And so that's where my line is drawn. I'm willing to, go back with the leaf pickup, but I'm not going to try to save or not have a 50-cent surcharge for ticketed events to help pay back our, and this is their words in these meetings, significant amounts of overtime to pay that back, but yet we're going to take away leaf pickup. That's and again, I'm going to point out that people that attend these events are not just from the city of Wausau. So then the city of Wausau residents will go without a leaf pickup, which we can do, but then we're going to do, we're going to say that everybody that comes within the Wausau area is going to get doesn't have to chip in. So I have a problem with that. If that, I have a vote, you have a vote, everybody has a vote. I have no problem how it goes, but that is kind of my line in the sand after talking to residents since we've been doing these in the last month.
Okay.
So Mary Ann, you said being careful about the estimates. Where do you think that this would actually land?
I don't really know.
You consider it, there's about, the Hmong American Festival attracts about 10,000 people. I think, what is the annual attendance at the Wisconsin Valley Fair is around 100,000. But you got to consider also with the fair, there's a significant percentage of season ticket holders. I don't know, I think Wings Over Wausau, 17,000. I think that's what.
Last year we had.
Last year, not last year we didn't because there was a rain out, but on the year prior to that. So the Iron Bowl events, I don't know what their numbers would be, but I think we could easily say, I think we could easily cut this number in half at 70,000. And be, that would be quite a conservative figure, and see where it goes for the first year.
Can I just reiterate that, I know I spoke the last time to this, that if it turns out there's more money as a result of this, that is not wasted money on special events. There are purchases over the next 2 to 3 years that we are going to do, investments we are going to need to make in different technologies and infrastructure that are becoming the norm, standard police practice at special events like this, and they're not going to be cheap. So to be able to have some additional revenue that helps offset the cost of tethered drones and different things that our city insurance company is encouraging us to do for special events, it kind of ties our hands. We're going to be coming forward with purchases of those items, and if there's funds generated by the events for the use of those technologies that we're having them, maybe you would deem that appropriate.
Alder Gisselman?
My understanding that these would not be dedicated to, if we ticketed the events, would these be dedicated then to offsetting police department budgets? Or how would we register that in the budget?
If we go over and above, or with the, say,
Or
if
for
we put a
instance,
seven.
if we create a balance, or if we go over and above, does this then become a fund? I guess I need to have that explained.
So generally, revenues in the general fund, while they are allocated to a specific department, they are closed to the general fund balance at the end of the year. So they're not carried over from year to year. There's options that you could do that if you wanted to, but that is typically how the general fund works. Budgets end at the end of the year. Revenues can come in over or under budget, and expenses come in over or under budget, and it all closes to reserves.
No,
at the end
I
of the year.
understand that, but what I'm getting at is it doesn't become a fund
No,
automatically for drones, for
no,
instance, or
only if
something
you
like.
wanted it.
I think.
Right,
I-
only if it's included in the 26 budget.
Right.
Or the 27
Or
budget
at
as.
end of year, if you wanted to evaluate
Right.
what that revenue
Right,
was, you
right.
could do
There'd
it then.
have, since that any excess revenue would have to, if we were going to use it for any purpose, there would have to be a budget mod.
Yes,
So there, it's not like it's automatic, the money is not automatically going back to the department.
Because I agree with Matt, with all the person, with regard to the ticketed events. But looking at the numbers, then what does that mean for leaf pickup? What does that mean for the flowers? What does that mean restoring some more monies down to leaf pickup so that we can do a good job with our citizens? I think that, I'm not sure, I don't want to sort of open that can of worms, but,
so if you used 70,000, is that what you had suggested before?
yeah, I guess-
As the revenue amount, you wouldn't need to implement a reduction in leaf pickup to meet the goal of 2.5% levy. You would be at 2.47 for the levy.
and the flower baskets
And
would still be,
Yes, that would be
still
the only
Grace
change
Third
you would
Street?
make.
Okay.
Flower baskets would
Yep,
stay.
everything,
And the windows would be clean.
Yes.
And the windows would be clean.
Yes. And our leaves would be picked up.
yeah.
Is that,
I think that's a good idea. I think that's the best idea.
and we would also keep the animal control program too.
Yes.
So,
That's right.
so
And
that would.
recruiting.
And recruiting, yep, we would keep some money in the recruiting budget too for the police department. So I think that sounds almost like a consensus.
Yes.
So, okay. So a $70,000 target for special events. And then we would, we would send that to Public Health and Safety to figure out the mechanics. I guess, what do we need to do next on the budget?
So then, also we had in the packet a change to the Washington Street siphon project.
Yes.
We had that budgeted at $723,500, and it came in at $899, I think.
886,500.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
So we wanted to make amendment for that. That's being funded by a TID.
Yeah, it's being funded by a TID. That loan will be through the Wisconsin DNR Clean Water Fund. And so the TID will pay that loan back, so at a subsidized interest rate.
Do you know the TID?
Yeah, TID 8.
8?
8, yeah.
Okay, so that would, we wouldn't, that wouldn't
So-
affect the levy at all?
Right. It would be an increase to capital outlay and an increase to debt proceeds.
Debt proceeds, okay.
So if you wanted to make that change to the budget for submission to the council for consideration, you could do
Do we
that.
just do that by consensus, or do we need a motion on that?
Okay. Motion.
A motion? That's, I don't, okay, I guess
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion from Tierney and second from McElhaney to increase the budgeted amount for the Washington Street siphon project. Discussion? Hold on here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that carries.
And then we also had the revenue schedule in your packet. We had a couple of minor changes as departments had an opportunity to review the final work. But they were the new revenue, the major changes were the new revenue sources that we added for reinspection fees, lockouts, the key box, things like that. And then the Parks Commission had approved the Parks Department some minor changes. I wouldn't say there were dramatic changes this year. And then we just cleaned up some other areas. I tried to highlight on that spreadsheet anything that had changed.
Yeah, so there was a lot of
Oh,
changes in
and
the
then,
inspections.
yes, and inspections had a lot of changes,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. And then really, our process has been to do about a 3% increase in permitting fees every year.
Okay, that just sort of keeps track with inflation.
Yes.
So, okay. Do we need a motion to accept the fee schedule?
Yep,
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to accept the fee schedule as printed in the packet. Motion from Gisselman, second from Tierney. Discussion on that? Not hearing anything. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that carries. Now, do we need a motion on our budget reductions, or does that just get baked into the budget?
sure, you
for-
can do it if you want, or,
or-
I mean, I don't think
Can,
it's,
can you just go down just so that
sure.
we have
Comprehensive.
sort of Mary Ann's list?
Sure. Let's see if I can find it here. Here it is. Okay.
Just so that we're all,
So we had cancel the membership in the U.S. mayors, which was $3,800.
well, I think the first block is, I mean, just pretty much what we did tonight.
Tonight.
Oh, tonight.
Oh, so then it would just be
The ticket.
implementing the ticketed special event charge and using an estimate of 70,000 this first
Okay.
year.
But otherwise, everything else is
Nothing else was changed.
affected. Okay. Thank you.
Yep,
Free events will stay the same, and yeah, leaf collection will stay the same.
yes.
Okay. And do we need to talk, so,
I think the only thing left that we really haven't really hammered out, and that is the motor pool fund. And it's been a challenge because, with COVID, I mean, we're getting this year still equipment that we ordered back in 2022. And so what we're trying to do right now is come up with a cash flow that we think would be accurate to kind of give an idea of equipment that we order in 2025, when do we actually have cash needs for those? For example, a fire truck can take 2 years for delivery, and some of our other equipment takes 2 years for delivery still today. And, for example, Solomon was explaining that he had some piece of equipment, I think it's the 2 trucks that we
Yep.
said for ARPA, he couldn't even order those until just recently because they weren't accepting orders for them. So we're really trying to hammer out so that we have an understanding. When we worked on the 23 budget, we actually had anticipated borrowing $2.2 million. But again, when we borrow money, we have to spend that. The IRS requires we spend that in a certain period of time. So when equipment wasn't coming in, we didn't borrow for it because we had no need for it. So this year, towards third quarter, all of a sudden, some of that equipment has been coming in. So we want to be able to do an accurate job of showing what that cash flow need is going to be, and that's what we're working on right now. We don't necessarily have to do a change in the budget because the budget reflects what they wanted to order. It would just be really to fine tune for what we wanted to borrow in 2025 for that. And then also looking at if we have profit at the end of this year, whether we wanted to allocate some of the general fund profit to the motor pool to help offset some of these, ongoing or accumulated deferrals of equipment.
so instead of using borrowing to, say, purchase a piece of equipment, if we had excess revenue at the end of the year, we could allocate for that.
Yes.
So,
And really coming up with a reporting mechanism that would show what those cash flow needs were when we're ordering equipment, because it's been a big challenge to try to track that, I think.
It's
And
been-
really understand when the cash is going to be needed.
Yeah, it's been a challenge to track it, but it's also been a challenge to budget, right?
Yes.
Because if we come in and say we need 4.5 million in the motor pool budget, but we really only spend 2 because we're waiting another year and a half for the vehicles to come in, right? It becomes complicated. And our budgets then, they're not even, right? They're all over. The other point is that we have certain pieces of equipment that are very expensive, right? And so it would be nice for us to maybe make some recommendations to finance and council on which equipment that we're going to purchase just based on levy and the fees that we get in versus what we're going to borrow to purchase, right? And so if we're looking at an aerial truck that's $2 million, should we borrow that versus trying to budget for it, so much every year for 10 years?
Right.
Some of our large pieces of equipment, graders, things like that we have, would it be better for us to borrow those? And then what are those borrowing terms and
Right.
stuff like that,
Because typically, when we prepare the budget, we say what we're going to borrow in that year. Well, if
Right.
we are going to order a fire truck and it's going to be, somewhere between $1 million and $2 million, we're not going to borrow for that if we're not going to actually get the truck for 2 years, because we wouldn't be following our IRS regulations, and, we
Right.
would have those proceeds way too early.
Right?
So we'd like to come up with a policy that we could share with the
Yes.
committee for consideration.
Okay, so that's probably something we might see at the beginning of the year then?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
okay, does that sound, I guess, I think we got general consensus on that, to see what's gonna happen with the motor pool, if we're gonna just try to solve some of those, those capitalization issues that it continually has, so. All right, I think, speaking of the motor pool, we did have on the top of the list, remove the airboat from service and sell for $75,000. I don't know that,
Jeremy wanted to talk about
yeah, the
that.
chief, Jeremy, the fire chief, did have something. He was a little concerned about that initially, so maybe we should hold on that, or,
With the airboat, again, like Chief Barnes said, the challenges were to come up with these numbers. This one doesn't really, in my mind, come up with the numbers I needed for our own department. It's more of a motor pool type thing. And I don't think it affects the levy, if I'm
Right.
not mistaken. And the other part of that is kind of on me for coming up with an idea and not having a solution. I don't think I have a real good solution as to what I could convey would take the place of the airboat at the moment. I'm not saying there isn't one, I just don't know that I have the appropriate one. So this is one of those items I'd like to maybe put a pin in and talk about at another time, if at all possible.
maybe we can take the airboat off the list and study it, study its feasibility. It's not affecting our levy at all, because it was just a motor pool charge.
Right.
So, I need to,
So when do we have to have these numbers finalized? Because,
So as Jeremy said, this one really doesn't necessarily affect the budget, because it was going to be a revenue for the sale, and we had not incorporated that in the motor pool budget yet. And, you don't know if you're actually going to get that amount from the sale. I don't know how you came up with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that sale is, I was just looking on the internet at what they were going for, and
Got it.
I think we paid that much for it brand new back in
Oh.
2017, so I'm thinking it's really not worth close to that amount at this point either.
So you would just,
Nor do I know what it would cost to replace it with something as effective but less expensive.
when Solomon was here, he said it's very expensive to,
To maintain and repair.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's why I'd like to look at other options, and, I preach to the men and women of the fire department all the time, if you're gonna bring a problem to me, have a solution. And I really didn't listen to my own advice, and I don't have a solution to the problem at the moment.
I think we'd be better suited maybe to hold off on this and study its feasibility, and then decide, when we talk about these other motor pool issues, kind of bundle them all together, if that's something that's, if we should, go a different route with the airboat or not, I guess. Because right now, it's not, yeah, we can pull this off the list, it's not going to affect our levy targets. All right, a consensus on that, or any more discussion, or, I think we're good, on that. So, we'll do that, we're gonna take this off the list, and, it'll come back with our motor pool discussion.
Thank you.
So hopefully we'll come up with some kind of solutions for the airboat. All right, then maybe, why don't we just have a motion on our proposed budget reductions and enhancements? And then we can move on to our second agenda item. So, I'll entertain.
So this motion is just on the adjustments, not with regard to the whole budget.
Correct, just the adjustments. Do we have to have a vote on to have a motion on the entire budget?
Well, typically, finance recommends the budget to council.
I was going to say, I pulled up last year's, and the motion was to approve this was last year, 2024 budget as amended, and the subsequent budget sessions. That was last year's motion.
Okay. So maybe that's the best thing, just to have a motion to pass the budget on to the full council as amended in our budget sessions. I'll entertain a motion. Okay, a motion from McElhaney. Second from Tierney. Discussion.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Because I know I'll get the question, so with regard to the fire department and the police department, the 24 estimated actual for the fire department was 7,800,000, and the proposed is 9,700,000 plus. Is there, and I'll ask the same question of the police department, it seems like the numbers are really, and I know that this is just in the personnel, but I think I think we should hear, what, since they are such large numbers increase, and I know this is part of the ARPA, I know that this is part of the increase, but it does seem like a large amount of money increasing in budget for the fire department.
Yeah, I guess, short of repeating what you just said, it really is about personnel, wages, and benefits, right?
Well, I think some of the other departments aren't that, that much, and it sounds like it's just an increase in, and I was just, the normal.
Well, in less than 2 years, we've increased our staffing, and we've needed to because we haven't in over 50 years, by 12 personnel plus a community care paramedic, which is mostly funded by, outside organizations and partners. So, we're looking at staffing our engines differently than we always have. We'll have 3-person engines, a rotation on our ambulances, which our ambulance calls are ever growing. We're getting busier and busier. Burnouts become a concern with being on the ambulance for an entire shift, every shift. And just providing the care that's required by NFPA, the care and the response with numbers going to fire scenes and emergency calls. So in order to get that number, it's been a drastic move, but it's been a move that unfortunately didn't happen over the last 50 years in the fire department in the city of Wausau, where we should have been increasing, accordingly, and now we've done it all at once, and now we're kind of dealing with those big numbers, but.
Because that is quite a, 23 actual was 7,600,000, and that was 23 actual, and then now proposed 2025 is 9,700,000, just so that you can sort of see the.
Right,
the
so,
large-
at 100,000, a firefighter, that's 12 firefighters, right?
Right.
Yeah, so you're looking at 1.2 million right there, between SAFER and ARPA. And I think when we did the budget, we're budgeting for them in the general fund, in the fire department, but the accounting is taking place in the grant fund, so that, because in Workday, the grant fund has like special powers to track the grant, do our grant reporting for us, And then at the end of the year, we'll move that into the general fund for final reporting. But when these estimated actuals, it's sitting in the grant fund, not in the general fund. So this year, as I think I'd mentioned with our new budget software, it was kind of a struggle with the estimated actuals to get all of those types of transactions captured in the right place, because we basically implemented it so late in the year. We're hoping that next year will be a little bit more up to date in having this, all of the rough edges worked out, but it was a big challenge with the estimated actuals in particular was the worst.
I know we're looking, if I'm looking at the budget summary here for fire, and there is a big jump in personnel services
Yeah.
between 2023 actual and department request for this year, but also there's a big jump in intergovernmental revenues.
Right.
So that would be the, correct me if I'm wrong,
That's the
like,
grant
that's the
income.
safer grant
Yes,
on the credit side of our
Yes,
debit, so.
exactly. So, and the same is happening in PD, not to the extent, but VOCA, Beat Patrol, and the 2 new officer positions are all showing up in that grant fund for actuals, and in the budget, they were in
Yeah.
the general fund, maybe not the 2 new officers, but
But,
the
yeah.
VOCA and Beat Patrol.
But to Gary's point, there is almost a $1.5 million
Yeah.
increase in our
Yes.
budget for fire between
makes sense.
2023 and 2025.
And I think when the citizens see this, I think that's why I sort of asked the question, because once the citizens see that, that I think they need some kind of an explanation. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, that's, almost entirely eaten up by personnel costs, by staffing our department at a higher level. So, okay, any other discussion on the motion on the floor? No, not hearing anything. We'll take a vote. So all those in favor of of moving the budget to council as amended in our budget sessions, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that carries.
So-
All right.
One other thing that we talked about, so we've followed basically 2 different schedules. The typical schedule is to have the public hearing the first Tuesday in November and then adopt the budget the second Tuesday, or the fourth Tuesday in November. But we have, over the years, had the budget public hearing that first meeting in November and adopted it the same night. And I wondered if that would be something that the Finance Committee would be interested in doing, given the amount of work that we've done on the budget. And, my concern is if there are other changes that might need to take place, like,
Like after the public hearing?
yeah.
Or?
Well, I guess I was concerned that, if the budget gets vetoed,
Amendments.
Yeah.
yes, that, and we wait until the November 28th meeting, then we would have very little time to react to that. That's my main concern. If the budget gets vetoed by the mayor on the November 28th meeting, we would have no time to react to it, and it's really going to end up delaying tax bills for the residents. So if we put it on the agenda for the first meeting to adopt the budget, if council didn't want to, they would just table that item until the next meeting. If they felt comfortable, you could adopt it, and then it would be done that first meeting in November.
Yep.
So it would be something to consider.
That would give us, Gary, go ahead.
So when would we have the public hearing then?
So the public hearing would be set for that first meeting in November, which I think is November 12th.
The both would happen the same day.
Yep.
We would have public hearing, council would discuss it, and they would vote on the budget the same
Yep.
evening. So it would be a big meeting.
Right, because that's why we're having the public meeting, is to get public,
Yeah.
Right.
You
But
know,
we
so I'm
typically
not
get
sure what
very
happens
little.
there.
Right, we typically get
but
very
we
little
can,
comment.
we can just call a special meeting of the city council for the following week, or, I mean, that's pretty much, right? I mean, we can plan on that, the first meeting in November.
Oh, and have a special council meeting?
And then if we need, I mean, if we need it, I'm not sure what's gonna happen on that Tuesday night, but if we need it. But your plan then would be to have the public hearing and vote on that first meeting in November.
Yes.
Yes, that was my thought. And,
Okay.
you know, I did think about having a special meeting too. My main concern is, you know, that fourth meeting in November is the 26th. That following week is the first week of December.
Right.
And your next meeting
We
would
have
be
to-
December 10th. And I just hate
Yeah,
for
we
the
have to
tax
do it
bills to
before
get
then.
really backed
My,
up.
my big concern is I don't want any hiccups along the
Right.
way that prevent the property tax bills going out in a timely manner. I've already gotten emails from constituents concerned about receiving their property tax credits, and they need to have those tax bills in their hands in order for that to happen.
Right.
Agree.
And I did talk to the mayor about this, and he thought it was a good idea.
So, okay, so that's, I guess that's mostly just informational. That's kind of the way we'll move forward. And then I think we're done talking about the budget. We're going to move on to, and as they say in Monty Python, now for something completely different. Item number 2, discussion and possible action authorizing the mayor to sign the FHWA/WISDOT subrecipient LPA Title I guess that'd be Title 6 / non-discrimination assurances for receiving federal financial assistance from the U.S. Department of Transportation. And we've got, I guess, Eric had us add this into the agenda because a little bit of time is of the essence on this kind of thing.
Yeah, the DOT came out with this. It's just new regulations that we have when we're using STP urban funds, federal highway funds. There's more documents we need to put in our bidding documents. And also if we're doing an eminent domain like we do for TLEs and stuff on those projects, that we will have to do something different or something additional, I should say, for acquiring those properties. And so the DOT is requiring that the city sign this assurances that these things will be done. And so I ran this through legal, and they recommended that this be brought through Finance and Council to authorize the mayor to sign this document.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, motion from McElhaney, a second from Gisselman. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
And that carries. And we're on to adjournment. So I'll entertain a motion. A motion, Tierney, a second from, I need a second to adjourn. Gary, we need a second to adjourn. Thank you. Second from Gisselman. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Nice job.